Thanks once again for joining us. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Today's show is something I'm calling the utility secret weapon that Tesla has. So one of the things that comes up is that when you're an investor, particularly an older investor, there are things called utilities. Power companies, for example, are a utility, gas companies, etc. And everybody loves to invest in them because they have wonderful qualities. And Tesla fits the bill on almost half of its business in that regard. And it's a secret weapon because it values a company a lot higher, and therefore it's a lot more stable and investable by certain investors. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Thanks once again for joining us. If this is your first time, welcome. If you're a repeat visitor, welcome back. As you can see, my orientation isn't necessarily what we'd like, but it works. And so what I wanted to focus on today is please join us for better investing tips, as well as, please like if you enjoy the video. So there's a number of angles I could come at this with, and I probably will come at it from 3 different angles to discuss this topic. The first thing I wanted to review is, as you noticed, about 2 weeks ago, after maybe 3 weeks, after it was announced that Tesla would start opening up its charging facilities to non-Tesla vehicles, and that schedule is over the next year and a half. Initially, 1 or 2 companies joined, and then everybody joined. And then now, I guess GM is sort of in and out, may join another group or do Tesla as well. That's unknown. But what I wanted to review is the fact that the stock went from the 180 ballpark to now 250, 270, someplace in there as we went through this week. So it's been bugging me for the last couple of weeks as of why this has occurred. Because usually whenever you deal with a company, the way you evaluate things is, okay, how many cars did you sell, or how many of X item did you sell? How much was it per item? Done. Now we know what your revenue and profit is and the growth of both, and those will largely determine what your stock price is. Not the case with Tesla. I don't know if you noticed, but after the last both production number and earnings numbers came out, Tesla's stock price initially took a dip on hedge fund concern, but then it spiked back up again. And there's been kind of no clear discussion of this as to why this has been happening. So I believe we have an answer for this. And I'm particularly excited about it because even Barron's decided that Tesla's stock price pop of $15 this week made no sense. So let us review, in general, characteristics of utilities. So number 1, let's just take the power company, for example, as your home, or your gas company, or your water company. There's some interesting things about that. Number 1, if you choose to not get water anymore from them, you're stuck going to the store to buy bottles worth, rather than if you want to take a shower, you turn the water on, right? Example of utility. Really nice to use. You're hard pressed to change how you do business. And so it's a utility. It has a certain power and control over customers that others don't. Think about Tesla charging. Best charging network in the world, global footprint, regular and growing customers as the number of vehicles sold increases. Also regular and growing customers as we add more car companies that are working with Tesla's charging facilities. So the next question that pops up is, so why am I hammering home this whole utility thing? Well, what happens with utilities is that the population grows at about a 2% per annum amount. So usually what utilities do is the stock price slowly rises, driven by a very slow growth in revenue. And it tends not to go out of business, because if they go out of business, a whole bunch of people would be hugely inconvenienced. Now, obviously there are other charging facilities than Tesla, but again, as we go back to reliability, size of the footprint, all these different attributes, Tesla's building a rapport both with the folks they work with and the different tiers of even very, very high speed charging they can do that others can't. And so the utility of Tesla is shaping sort of the willingness of owners to transition to EVs. And this is why all those companies had to make the switch to the use of Tesla charging facilities, because their customers were basically saying, we ain't buying any of these electric vehicles unless, number one, we have decent range, but number two, we're not stuck charging overnight in the middle of nowhere when we need to be charged up. So hence, brilliant move by Tesla to facilitate sort of growing speed of chargers to the point where we're almost in the supercharger speed zone for recharging of vehicles. I think we're at level 3 for at least half the chargers right now. Level 4 is coming, and once it arrives, I think we'll start competing with delivering, speed of charging that is somewhat imperceptible from a regular gas station. So we'll see how that works out. So I decided to go down this path because there's a number of questions that I think are worth asking and answering. An example would be, there's a company, let's say, call it Tesla. What happens if Tesla goes under, right? For giggles. That's a really good question. The answer that comes up is that the car company could go under, but the utility company of the charging facilities doesn't go under because it's a utility. So that's actually really huge, because what can happen with Tesla? It's not happening. It's being fed through the stock price, is that the stock market is all of a sudden saying, hey, Tesla is at least two different companies in one. A car manufacturing company, and it's also a utility when it comes to delivery of power to those vehicles that need to charge up when they're not at home. So I'm intrigued because we kind of have some interesting dynamics occurring. Have a bee here that's decided the bananas I picked up were not a good idea to have in the car. So what I wanted to get at is the fact that if Tesla wanted to, they could split into two companies, and they could actually have both stocks be really solid, growing, and profitable. And that's pretty amazing. So when you think of a utility, let's say your water company, right? There are a certain number of hookups that will increase that year because of growth of usership by the number of people in the household, and also the number of hookups just in the number of houses or businesses that are signed on. Slow growth, about 2%, wouldn't be out of line. Well, what happens when you have a utility, as in the power side of Tesla, and when you add all these other companies that are now going to be using Tesla's charging facilities? Not only do you have the safety of utility, but it's actually growing really fast. And so I've heard the word unicorn over and over again, i.e. an investing entity that's pretty amazing and surprising in its results. But I guess what I'm really stunned by is that I can now see, so as we go through this logic and we walk through how utilities work and the fact that large investors like to invest in them, and we go through the fact that if you have a utility that's growing quickly, that's a very safe, rapidly growing entity. And those are extremely rare. And it's the exact type of entity that people love to invest in. Hence, that's why we're currently seeing Tesla stock price up on this news. And it continues to stay up despite other challenging things occurring, be it Elon cutting prices or other things that are going on. So with all this said, I wanted to point out, because of how the Tesla internal utility is continuing to grow and flex its muscles, do not be surprised if J.B. Stroibel's prediction that the sort of electric utility side of the business becomes bigger than the car business, because you keep adding more vehicles out there that are on the road, etc. one of the ways I think this is going to happen is take a look at some of the video of Tesla's charging facilities in Shanghai. There's one place in Shanghai that it looks like an 80-story building, and they actually have 4 levels of the facility that's a parking garage that are devoted to Tesla vehicles charging up inside that building. Mind blowing. This brings up the question of Tesla ownership in a place like New York or the greater New York area. Los Angeles, not so much. It's spread out enough to have plenty of charging at home, as well as a lot of big charging facilities by Tesla. But in general, the idea is that central city locations for charging electric vehicles, particularly Teslas, is coming off the beach right now. And the more of those we see, the penetration inside cities is going to be greater for electric vehicles once they arrive. So so this show, I want to say, is a little bit crazy in design because in theory, you can't have a utility that's utilities don't do certain things. Utilities don't grow fast. Utilities are obviously very stable, and part of the whole idea is that stability, it plays into why it doesn't grow fast. So I just want to say that Tesla here is delivering something very unique that allows it to become a very large company riding on the coattails of the fact that it's almost like, the charging portion of the business is a Trojan horse that's short and long-term profitable and is growing nicely. And it sets the company up to do extremely well because it can fall back on those charging facilities as we go forward. Now, we're probably going to dive into this more in the future. I've been getting some feedback from friends that are knowledgeable that say, for example, Tesla can't sell power because all they can do is sort of mark up the connection and then the power would come from wherever it comes from. This stuff hasn't been clarified to my liking, but in general, there is money that'll be exchanged from Tesla paying to build these facilities and having them available for everyone. So I did a show a couple of weeks ago, and it was focused on the fact of the whole idea of a Santa bag. The fact that Tesla has a funny thing happening, which is there are all these businesses that are sub-obvious, and all of a sudden Tesla will whip it out, and everybody's like, whoa, what's going on there? And I just believe that Tesla is in a position right now where there's a lot of things that Elon does that's interconnected, and those things end up being extremely, profitable as they hook together for an extension of the business into a new area. So, one example being one of the big things Tesla is sort of focused on the side pocket is, for example, if you know the number of vehicles you have, we have the duck curve. So what's going to happen in the near future is if you want your car to become a part of a network of vehicles, you could charge it up, and instead of power going into the car, you could actually have power taken out of the car to help support the grid as we have a decline in the production of sunlight-driven power that allows you not to have to use fossil fuel-based backups during that time period. So in theory, your car could become a profit center because it is now being used to stabilize the grid at certain times of the day while you're charging at night. And you get a fee for that. So there are several folks that asked me about what I meant by, a Santa bag. And the fact is, a lot of times during Christmas, you actually didn't know what was going to be in your Santa bag. And you kind of reach in there and all of a sudden you're like, oh, this is a nice thing that I could use, wasn't expected, and I'm grateful to my parents. And I think that there's a lot of Santa bagness going on for Tesla as some of these ideas roll out over time. So, the other question mark is, should Tesla sort of raise money to do something big in power production, because they could use that power on their own vehicles or other people's vehicles, You also have huge power consumption as the trucks come to market. Tesla can take over and sell as much of that power as they want or not. They're somewhat competing with the utilities for selling that power into, let's say, a semi-truck or a semi-truck fleet. So I don't want to belabor the point. As you know, we cover things that are different that everybody else doesn't do. It sounds dumb at the front end, but take time to think it through. Because as Tesla keeps growing and it becomes a preferred charging facility for a lot of folks, you might be surprised to learn that the utility side of the business ends up being a very stable profit center for Tesla that makes it what everybody wants to be a part of. And unlike other utilities that grow 2% per year, you could have Tesla going 20, 30% a year on their power production and use business. And the markets have to scramble, determine how much that is, how much it's worth, how fast it's growing, and then add valuation to that. So I believe that this is a big part of the reason why we just saw that bump in Tesla stock price. And if anything, the bias is upward. And we're getting that bump despite the fact that Elon is cutting prices on the cars, because I believe it's, becoming sell them the razor and then sell them the razor blade in the form of power afterwards. And if we get to level 4 charging and those suckers are, going from 15 to 20 minute charge ups to 10-ish minute charge ups, I just think it's game over in a lot of ways for competitors, because they have to prepare their vehicles to take that charge from Tesla, and they have to pay Tesla while they get to sell cars, and Tesla gets an income stream on a permanent basis from all those vehicles that are being charged up. So stay tuned. We look forward to updating you further on this. I just wanted to now finish up our sort of Tesla coverage and move on to our usual health tips. Don't forget your 20-minute walk on a daily basis. Also, the 25 leg lifts per day to strengthen quad muscles. And I'm hearing a lot of Prilosec commercials right now. As we noted, our University of Louisville cancer doc recommended do not go to bed within 4 hours, eating minimum 2 hours to let the food to digest so you don't have acid reflux issues. We have other listed below health tips from different docs around the world, around the country. Look forward to your comments on this idea today. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Tschüss German, au revoir French, Lehitro, Hebrew, Hodai, as far as in Russian, that's hello in Russian. Namaste, Hindi. Arrivederci. In Spanish and Jamaica, we say enough respect, walk, good man. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day, and bye for now.